Hi, welcome back. Today we are discussing from section 34 to 38 of Indian Evidence Act 1872. Just a few minutes ago I have uploaded another video which contained details of section 33. What are the sections 34 to 38? These are statements made under special circumstances. Always bear in mind that we are now discussing those sections which speak of relevancy of facts or relevant facts. Section 34 to 38 are statements made under special circumstances. Now let us see section 34. Entries in books of account when relevant. Entries in books of account, including those maintained in an electronic form, regularly kept in the course of business, are relevant whenever they refer to a matter into which court has to inquire, but such statement shall not alone be sufficient evidence to charge any person with liability. The section is very clear, doesn't require much explanation, but still, for the sake of convenience, I shall tell you. See, whoever runs a business or conducts a profession or service, whatever it is, whatever be the trade or service in which he is engaged, there has to be certain books maintained during the regular course of business. Similarly, there has to be invariably an account book. And a book, book signifies a collection of sheets of paper. It's a collection of sheets of paper bound together. Now, for example, this is a book. This is a register. Very book. It contains so many pages, and you see, it has pages ranging from page number 1 to page number 450. All pages are initial, and on the first page there will be a certificate stating that this register contains 450 pages, and each page is serially numbered and initialed by me, whoever is in charge of that institution or the business. Whereas this, you see, it is simply a what you call sheet of papers. These are loose sheets. These are simply loose sheets, and anybody can take a sheet or remove the sheet and attach a sheet. So this cannot be called as a register. Fine. Now, during the course of business, if an entry is made in the books which are regularly kept, books of account, and that entry will be relevant. I shall explain by means of an illustration. I am a businessman. In my cash book or in my account book, I have made an entry that I have paid 5 lakh rupees to Mr. Sriraj. Sriraj may be a friend of mine, maybe a customer of mine, some relation is there. There cannot be a relation also. But if I have made an entry that rupees 5 lakh paid to Sriraj, so according to the journal entry transaction, it is Sriraj's account debtor to cash. Cash is going out from my account and Sriraj is getting, and Sriraj becomes my debtor. No. Simple logical question is that just because I have made an entry in my own books of account stating that rupees 5 lakh has been paid to Sriraj, whether this statement or this entry alone confers a liability on Sriraj to pay back the amount. commonsensically, if we apply, this entry alone doesn't constitute the liability of Sriraj to pay back the money, because it is my books of account. I can write any amount. Maybe I have paid 5,000. So there is every possibility that I manipulate and write 5 lakh. But that is relevant, provided it needs corroborative evidence also. Merely by making an entry in a books of account regularly kept in the course of business, that does not become a conclusive evidence of the fact that money has been paid. So Sriraj also, I have to also produce, I can certainly produce the particular page of my account book in the court where I have written duly dated that on 15th May 2020 I have paid rupees 5 lakhs to Sriraj. That I have made the entry, I have certified the entry, and this is a very big cash book and it is regularly maintained. No problem. Now, I have also to produce before the court some corroborative evidence also in support of my claim. What could be the corroborative evidence? The evidence to the effect that Sriraj has received rupees 5 lakh from me on so and so day. His signature, his date, duly revenue stamp or whatever formalities are required, whether I have transferred from my account to his account, in that case, that entry and all those things. To put it briefly, any such entry in the books of account which is self-serving in nature, in section 32, suppose 2, we have seen entries made in due course of business, books kept in due course of business. There the statements were self-harming statements, which doesn't require any corroboration. You can imagine the other way around. If I write that I have to pay rupees 5 lakh to Sriraj because I have borrowed rupees 5 lakh from Sriraj and tomorrow I die, this book alone is sufficient to sufficient in support of the evidence, because that was a self-harming statement, because I am liable to pay. No man with prudence and common sense will ever make an entry which is detrimental to his interest, which is self-harming. But here rupees 5 lakh has been paid to Sriraj and I have made an entry in my books of account. That alone is not sufficient, that is relevant. According to section 34, it is relevant, it is admissible. But corroborative evidence is also required. Corroborative evidence will be in the form of a receipt or whatever it is, to prove that I have transferred the money, I have paid the money, and Mr. Sriraj has received the money from me. Only then it will give a liability. It will fix a liability on Sriraj to return the money to me. This is called, books kept in due course of business. And there are 3 conditions, 3 ingredients. First, there has to be an entry in the book. This is the book, and there has to be an entry. I have made an entry in the books of account. It has to be. Second is, it has to be a book of account. Suppose it is my diary, where I write several personal things, where I have gone to Delhi with my wife and children, I met my friends, and all those miscellaneous things, I write it in a diary. That will not be counted as a book of account. Right? So, there has to be an entry in the book that I have already made, and this has to be a book of account. And thirdly, this book is regularly kept in due course of, in the course of business. This book is regularly kept. It is not that once in a blue moon you open the book, you write an entry, close it, and after 2 years you take and make an entry. No, that cannot be termed as regularly kept. But whether it is regularly kept, whether it is a book in due course of business maintained by the firm, maintained by the individual, all these are facts or matters of dispute to be decided by the court according to the facts and circumstances of the case. It may differ from case to case. There is a very, very interesting case in this regard. You might have heard of Jain Brothers Hawala Diary. Jain Brothers, S.K. Jain, S.J. Jain, etc. There were some Jain brothers. They were a firm. They were booked under Foreign Exchange Management Act and Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, FERA and FEMA. They were charged under those offences, and in which they had kept a diary. In the diary, they had written the names of very, very senior political leaders of India, wherein they have made entry in their diary that I have paid rupees 40 lakhs to so and so political leaders. I don't want to disclose the names. You can go through the facts of the case which is available, and it is Jain Hawala case. You can see Jain Hawala case. Some political leaders were involved, and on behalf of the political leaders, Sri Kapil Sibal and what's his name, Singhvi, Rajinder Singh, etc. All first class brains in the field of advocacy had appeared in the Supreme Court. The court ruled that such entry made in some diary stating that some amounts have been paid to some political leaders cannot be taken or cannot be taken as a relevant fact. So it was rejected. Had those entries been made in the books of account, had there been a CBI, it was a case between CBI and Jain Brothers. If CBI had found those entries in the books of account which was regularly kept in their business firm of Jain Brothers, and if they could also produce the receipts of the money which have been received by those political leaders, the scene would have been different. But here, it was very clearly ruled that that is not relevant. So, regularly kept is, it has to be kept under certain set of rules. If it is a society or trust, there will be a bylaw, and the bylaw will contain certain instructions that these are the books to be kept during the course of business. Section 34 comes like this. Now, I would say in Malayalam, Section 34 പറയുന്നത് നമ്മൾ ഒരു റെഗുലർ കോഴ്സ് ഓഫ് ബിസിനസ്സിൽ സൂക്ഷിക്കേണ്ടതായ കണക്ക് പുസ്തകം, അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്ക്, ആ അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്കിൽ എൻട്രി ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ, ആർക്കെങ്കിലും പണം കൊടുത്തതായിട്ടുള്ള എൻട്രി കൃത്യമായി ഡേറ്റ് എഴുതി ആ അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്കിൽ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അത് റെലവൻ്റ് ആണ്. പക്ഷെ ആ ഒരു എൻട്രി മാത്രം വെച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഒരാളുടെ ലാബിലിറ്റി ഫിക്സ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അതിനോടുകൂടി കൊറോബറേറ്റീവ് എവിഡൻസ് കൂടി വേണം. ഇപ്പം ഞാൻ ശ്രീരാഗിന് 5 ലക്ഷം രൂപ കൊടുത്തു എന്ന് എൻ്റെ അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്കിൽ ഞാൻ തന്നെ എഴുതി വെക്കുക എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ആ അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്ക് റെഗുലർലി മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻഡ് ആണെങ്കിൽ, പേജ് വൈസ് ആണെങ്കിൽ, ഡേറ്റ് വൈസ് ആണെങ്കിൽ, ഡ്യൂലി ഓതറൈസ്ഡ് ആണെങ്കിൽ, ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് റെലവൻറ്റ്, സംശയമൊന്നുമില്ല. പക്ഷേ ശ്രീരാഗ് എൻ്റെ കയ്യിൽ നിന്ന് പണം പറ്റിയിട്ടുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ള റെസീറ്റും അതിനുള്ള തെളിവുകളും കൂടി കൊറോബറേറ്റീവ് എവിഡൻസ് ആയിട്ട് ഞാൻ ഹാജരാക്കിയാൽ മാത്രമേ അത് അഡ്മിസിബിൾ ആകും, അതിന് പ്രൊബേറ്റീവ് വാല്യൂ ഉണ്ടാവുള്ളൂ. സി, പ്രൊബേറ്റീവ് വാല്യൂ ഈസ് സംതിങ് ഡിഫറെൻറ്റ്. That is decided by the court. For example, now we are given an assignment, okay, by our professor. All the students wrote the assignment, kept it in the staff room on the table. When the marks were given, some got 9 out of 10, some got 6 out of 10, some got 5 out of 10, some got 4 out of 10, and 1 or 2 persons got 10 out of 10. Same topic, same teacher, same assignment, but the marks were awarded differently. Why? The marks were awarded on the basis of the contents of the assignment. How much you have written, whether all the relevant facts are covered, all the relevant points are covered, whether case law has been cited, whether you have written the introduction well, whether there is an index, and all those things will be considered. So similarly, the probative value. The probative value is what? Probative value is that which helps the court to know the truth, exactly how much weight it carries. How much weight that fact carries is the probative value. You cannot have a clear-cut definition, not definition. You cannot have a clear-cut standard that this has got this much of probative value. So that is to be weighed by the court while evidence are adduced. They will weigh the evidence. That weightage, the more weightage, more probative value. Less weightage, less probative value. So section 34 is the entry made in a books of account. The conditions are it has to be a book. I showed you the thick book. It cannot be loose pages. There are some case laws. You can go through those case laws where it was ruled by the courts that mere sheets, loose sheets cannot be considered as books kept in regular course of business. So those entries will be applicable. Those entries have to be in a book, number one. Number two, that book has to be an account book. Number three, that book has to be regularly kept in the course of business. And book signifies a collection of sheets of papers bound together, which I have shown. Now, what is regularly kept regularly kept means it has to be kept in accordance with some principles. Now, for example, somebody is doing a business and he is a real estate broker. Even a real estate broker will have a books of account with him. But is it possible that every day there will be some sort of purchase and sale of the land and buildings, etc.? No. Maybe once in 2 months, once in 3 months he gets a deal. So he writes the entry. Remaining days he may not have any entries. But such things will be considered by the court and will be decided according to the facts and circumstances of the particular case. This is all about section 34. It is relevant. Now, similarly, section 35. Section 35 says that it is public record. Relevancy of entries made in public record or electronic record made in performance of duty. An entry in any public or the other official work, register or record, or an electronic record stating a fact in issue or relevant fact and made by a public servant in the discharge of his official duty or by any other person in performance of a duty especially enjoined by law of the country in which such book, register, record or electronic record is kept itself is a relevant fact. See, public records are maintained during the performance of official duties of public servants. And it carry prima facie evidentiary value of the correctness of those books. Now, for example, what example can I cite to you? Say, in the corporation or the municipality or the panchayat, as the case may be, in rural and urban areas, where there will be a registrar of births and deaths. If a child is born, be it at home, be it in the hospital, within 24 hours, an intimation has to be given to the registrar of births and the name, details, date of birth has to be entered in the register. And that will be a correct entry. So such entries made by public servants in public record will be relevant facts. The three conditions are: first, document must be in the nature of an entry in a public or other official book or register or record. Suppose you are a professor in a law college first thing after reaching the college you do is you will go to the principal and put your signature of the attendance of that particular day. That is a public record. That is evident. Tomorrow, if there is an issue and the court wants to verify the question is whether Professor so and so was present in the college on that particular date. Yes, his signature is there, date is there, it is countersigned by the principal. That is a public record. An entry is a official entry or a public entry. The nature of an entry is public in the official book or register or record. That is relevant. Secondly, it must state a fact in issue or relevant fact. Here the fact in issue was whether a particular professor was present in the college on that particular day. If that was the fact in issue, whether he was present or no, his attendance throughout the day from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock, he was there in the college every hour in so and so class, that is sufficient. That entry will be admissible and that is relevant. The entry must be made by the public servant in the discharge of his official duty. If that attendance register is to be maintained by the principal, that cannot be maintained by a peon, or that cannot be maintained by a part-time sweeper. The competent authority or the public servant, whoever is responsible to maintain such accounts, have to be maintained. Okay. Now, those are the conditions. Now, the evidentiary value, admissibility of evidence and probative value are two different things. I have already explained to you. The fact of a statement in the school leaving register has to be proved in the same manner as required in the civil and criminal cases. Means you just cannot make a statement that, sir, I was present in the college or I was present in this school. That is not enough. In order to prove your presence in the school or college, a document is required. And that will be counter-checked also. You will be cross-examined. The evidentiary value of the record depends on the degree of the truth that it may under the circumstances reflect. Here comes the probative value. That is the degree of the truth. The presumption of the truth created by a public record is also rebuttable. You just cannot swallow it without water, or you cannot just take it for granted and say conclusive evidence. No, you can rebut it. The other party can rebut it. So that is section 35, that is entries in the public record. Now we will move on to section 36. I tell you, today we are living in an electronic age where even the economy is paperless, currency-less economy. Similarly, in many of the offices, there is hardly any paperwork. Everything is entered in computers. Your entry, your application, your online application, your receipts, your payments, your transactions, everything is recorded electronically. And all those electronic records are also admissible and relevant fact. The data contained in the electronic record is also admissible and that is also relevant. Now we will move on to section 36, that is relevancy of statement in maps, chart and plans. It goes without saying. Relevancy of maps, charts, statement of facts in issue or relevant facts made in published maps or chart generally offered for public for sale, or in maps or plans made under the authority of the central government or any state government as matters usually represented or stated in such map, charts and plans themselves are relevant facts. There is a map, the political map of India, which is available on payment of rupees 20 in a stationery shop. That is offered for public sale. But there are certain other maps, for example, where the military battalions are deployed. Such maps are not ready for, not available for sale. But that again is a document exclusively maintained by the Government of India, or the state government. So information contained in such maps are admissible and relevant. That's all about section 36. And section 37 is again relevancy of statement as to fact of public nature contained in certain acts or notification. What is the official notification of the government? Can anyone tell me? It is the Gazette. So even whenever bills are passed in the parliament, it becomes an act. When it is assented by the President of India, then it is published in the Gazette, it becomes operative. So the official notifications of the government is Gazette, Gazette of India or Gazette of the state. In here, Kerala Gazette, and matters pertaining to central government will be Central Gazette. So those matters which are contained in the official notifications or official gazettes are relevant fact. That is section 37. And we have got one more section, that is relevancy of statement as to any law contained in any law books. Where do we refer things? If the law books are published under the authority of the governments of that particular country, such law and reporting or ruling of the courts of such country will be relevant in evidence. Suppose we have got a ruling, the latest ruling on the SC/ST Atrocities Act. The Supreme Court has ruled that no anticipatory bail will be granted, shall be granted in case an accused is booked under the charges of SC/ST Atrocities Act. Earlier, in the Subhash Chandra case, the ruling was different, that an accused cannot be arrested without preliminary inquiry, preliminary investigation. And that also that has to be carried out by the Superintendent of Police. So then Parliament passed yet another rule to overcome this lacunae, that there was a dilution, it was alleged by people that there was a dilution of the welfare statute, which was actually meant for the protection of the welfare of the SC/ST community. But later, the Parliament passed a new law, it became the law. Supreme Court's rulings are rulings. They are also admissible. So such laws published under the authority of the government will be relevant. Before all these facilities of Google and internet and all those came, how and with the how much effort the senior lawyers of our country, how much they have burned the midnight oil to refer the books. Can you see this? This is Ratan Lal Virajlal, the Code of Criminal Procedure, 20th edition. See this book. Now we seldom need to go through the pages. If we immediately need a reference, we can simply say, "Hey Google, please tell me this." But accuracy is questionable. That is different fact. But what I am telling is, the law books, authoritative law books, the things or the information contained in the law books is authoritative and that is admissible and that is relevant. This is all about from section 34 to 38. സെക്ഷൻ 34 നമ്മൾ ഓൾറെഡി കണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞു. സെക്ഷൻ 34 നമ്മൾ എന്താണ് പറഞ്ഞത്? ഒരു ബുക്സ് ഓഫ് അക്കൗണ്ടിൽ, ഒരു അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്കിൽ ഒരു എൻട്രി ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ആ എൻട്രി മാത്രമായിട്ട് കൺക്ലൂസീവ് എവിഡൻസ് ആവില്ല. ആ എൻട്രി റെലവൻ്റ് ആണ്, കൂടാതെ അത് കൊറോബറേറ്റ് കൂടി ചെയ്യണം. കാരണം അത് സെൽഫ് സെർവിങ് സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ് ആണ്. സെൽഫ് ഹാർമിംഗ് സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെന്റ് നമ്മൾ സെക്ഷൻ 32(2) കണ്ടിരുന്നു. അത് അതിന് കൊറോബറേഷൻ ഒന്നും ഇല്ലെങ്കിലും ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് അഡ്മിസിബിൾ ആൻഡ് ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് റെലവന്റ്. അതിന്റെ കണ്ടീഷൻസ് ഇവിടെ സെക്ഷൻ 34 നമ്മളുണ്ട്. അത് ബുക്കായിരിക്കണം, അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്കായിരിക്കണം, അത് ബുക്കായിരിക്കണം, അക്കൗണ്ട് ബുക്കായിരിക്കണം, അത് റെഗുലർലി മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ ഇൻ ഡ്യൂ കോഴ്സ് ഓഫ് ബിസിനസ് ആയിരിക്കണം. സെക്ഷൻ 35 നമ്മൾ കണ്ടു പബ്ലിക് ഡോക്യുമെന്റ്. ഇപ്പോൾ ജനന മരണ സർട്ടിഫിക്കറ്റുകൾ ഇഷ്യൂ ചെയ്യുന്ന രജിസ്റ്ററിലുള്ള ഡോക്യുമെന്റിലുള്ള വിവരങ്ങൾ അത് പബ്ലിക് ഡോക്യുമെന്റ് ആണ്, അത് അഡ്മിസിബിൾ ആണ്, അത് റെലവന്റ് ആണ്. അതിൽ പ്രത്യേകം ശ്രദ്ധിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യം അത് ഒരു പബ്ലിക് ഡോക്യുമെന്റിൽ എൻട്രി ആയിരിക്കണം. ആ എൻട്രി ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത് റെലവന്റ് ഫാക്ടോ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഫാക്ട് ഇൻ ഇഷ്യൂ ആയിരിക്കണം. ഓക്കെ. 3, അത് പബ്ലിക് സെർവന്റ് തന്നെ ചെയ്തതായിരിക്കണം. പിന്നെ സുപ്രീം കോടതി അതിൽ പുതിയ റൂളിംഗുകൾ കൊണ്ടുവന്നിരുന്നു. ഓൾ ദോസ് തിങ്സ് ഷുഡ് ബി ആക്സസിബിൾ ടു ഓൾ ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് പർട്ടിക്കുലർ ഓഫീസ്. ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരാൾ എടുത്തിട്ട് ഒരു പേജിൽ എഴുതി വെച്ചിട്ട് ഇത് ഇവിടുത്തെ പബ്ലിക് ഡോക്യുമെന്റ് ആണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ പോരാ, അവിടെയുള്ള പബ്ലിക് അതോറിറ്റീസിന് എല്ലാവർക്കും ആക്സസിബിൾ ആകുന്ന ഒരു ഡോക്യുമെന്റ് കൂടി ആയിരിക്കണം. രഹസ്യമായിട്ടൊന്നും ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല എന്ന് സുപ്രീം കോടതി പറഞ്ഞു. പിന്നെ നമ്മൾ സെക്ഷൻ 36 വന്നു. അവിടെ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടത് മാപ്പുകൾ, ചാർട്ടുകളൊക്കെ. ഇപ്പം ഇന്ത്യയുടെ മാപ്പാണെങ്കിൽ വിൽക്കുന്ന മാപ്പുണ്ട്, 50 രൂപയ്ക്ക് 25 രൂപയ്ക്ക് കിട്ടുന്ന മാപ്പുണ്ട്. അതും റെലവന്റ് ആണ്. ഗവൺമെന്റ് മാത്രമായിട്ട് ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്ന, ഗവൺമെന്റ് മാത്രം റെസ്ട്രിക്റ്റഡ് സർക്കുലേഷൻസ് ഉള്ള മാപ്പുണ്ട്. അതിൽ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യങ്ങളും റെലവന്റ് ആണ്. പിന്നെ ലാസ്റ്റ് നമ്മൾ കണ്ടത് സെക്ഷൻ 30 ഏതായിരുന്നു? സെക്ഷൻ 37 നമ്മൾ കണ്ടത് പബ്ലിക് നേച്ചറിലുള്ള, അതായത് ഒഫീഷ്യൽ ഗസറ്റിലുള്ള നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷൻസ് റെലവന്റ് ആണ്. സെക്ഷൻ 38 നമ്മൾ കണ്ടു ലോ ബുക്കിൽ, അതായത് നമുക്ക് മാർക്കറ്റിൽ കിട്ടുന്ന ചില 50 രൂപ 100 രൂപയുടെ ഗൈഡുകളല്ല കേട്ടോ ഉദ്ദേശിച്ചത്. Authoritative law books issued by the state government or central government will be admissible. This is all about section 34 to 38. I hope you will listen it carefully, and I will come again to you with small videos on Indian Evidence Act, and after that other subjects of the law. Thank you.